Suddenly, Frodo noticed that a strange-looking, weather-beaten man, sitting in the shadows near the wall, was also listening intently to the hobbit talk. He had a tall tankard in front of him, and was smoking a long-stemmed pipe curiously carved. His legs were stretched out before him, showing high boots of supple leather that fitted him well, but had seen much more wear, and were now caked with mud. A travel-stained cloak of dark green cloth was drawn close about him, and in spite of the heat of the room, he wore a hood that overshadowed his face. So we are introduced to the character of Strider. Strider, a character who becomes such a great big part of the story as we read about in the coming chapters. A character who definitely, there's more to him than meets the eye, as the hobbits discuss in this chapter, where they talk about how like a villain or an antagonist of the enemy would look fair and feel fouler. And Strider laughs and says, I'm pretty much the opposite. Is that it? I feel fair, but I seem foul. And the hobbits are like, yeah, don't take this the wrong way, but kind of. We're introduced to the character of Strider in the previous chapter at the Sign of the Prancing Pony. And in this chapter, Strider, we realize that he is a friend of Gandalf's. He is sent by Gandalf to help protect the hobbits, and that he has a kind of a royal lineage. His true name is Aragorn, son of Arathorn. I want to talk today about a little bit about what that lineage is, because it's somewhat confusing in the book. Because in the earlier parts of this book, we learn about the nations of Gondor and Arnor, and how they are devoid of a king. But we also learn that Aragorn is the descendant and the rightful heir of these kingdoms. So the question really poses itself, well, how is a kingdom devoid of an heir? And the line was kind of broken, but at the same time, Aragorn kind of fulfills that, Aragorn/Strider fulfills that kind of lineage. So I'm gonna break it down very, very quickly for you. So to go all the way back to the beginnings of the story where Sauron lost the ring, so there was the last alliance of elves and men that we learned about in chapter 2. And this last alliance was led on the men's side of things by a king named Elendil and two sons, Isildur and Anarion. Now, after Elendil died in the battle where Sauron was initially defeated, Anarion became king of the lower southern kingdom called Gondor. Remember that, because Gondor will be extremely important to the story later on. And Isildur, the one who took the ring from Sauron's hands, became the king of the northern kingdom of Arnor. Now, many, many, many generations later, the Witch King of Arnor, who is one of the Black Riders that we talked about a few chapters ago, one of the wraiths who've been following Frodo around, he had a kingdom way to the north of Middle-earth, and that kingdom was basically at war with the northern kingdom of men, Arnor, quite often. And during one of the final conflicts between the Witch King and Arnor, there was a particular king of Arnor who married one of the daughters of the king of Gondor. Now, before you say, oh, families intermarrying, you have to realize that at this point it's several thousand years later, and like the two kind of lineages have kind of, gone in different directions. So, yeah, they were related, but like many, 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 many generations later. So you have the daughter of the king of Gondor marrying the king of Arnor. Now, the king of Arnor dies at the hand of the Witch King, and the king of Gondor also later dies without an heir. So that line is broken. The line of Gondor is broken, and Kingdom of Gondor is ruled by people called stewards, who are just kind of like caretakers to the throne of Gondor to this day. But the king of Arnor, the northern kingdom, did have a son, but because the kingdom of Arnor was so completely destroyed and broken by the Witch King, there was really nothing left to rule or reign. So this king became what we call the chieftain of the Dunedain. The Dunedain are these rangers that we've heard about in the last few chapters, who are kind of a strange folk wandering the wild, but are also protectors of different lands like the Shire. They look kind of strange. They look foul, but feel fair in a way. And there's not many of them, but they are all descendants of this king of Arnor. And Aragorn is 15th, kind of the 15th descendant of that king. And now the interesting thing in Tolkien's works and writings is that the prefix AR, so Aragorn, son of Arathorn, it denotes royalty for this particular culture. So every single descendant of that king of Arnor who died at the hands of the Witch King, down to Aragorn, starts with AR, kind of justifying in their minds the claim that yes, even though their kingdom is destroyed, they are still following, keeping to that royal lineage in the hope that someday a king can return and reclaim the lands and defeat evil. So that is some of the history behind Aragorn/Strider and his kind of right and claim for the kingdoms of Gondor and the broken, destroyed kingdom of Arnor. There's a lot more to him than meets the eye, as we shall see in the coming chapters, so I would definitely keep an eye out on him as you continue reading, because he is one of the characters that is most discussed in all of Lord of the Rings. So there's your little Tolkien tidbit for today. I will see you tomorrow in this video as we talk about A Knife in the Dark.